Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Jane Tabachnick. Jane Tabachnick is an award-winning content and publicity strategist and mentor. She works with mission-driven entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, and authors to help them become highly visible and create authority positioning and thought leadership. Founder of Simply Good Press, a book publishing company, Jane has helped over 200 authors achieve bestseller status. Named one of the top 100 people online by Fast Company, Jane has been featured or quoted in Inc., Clicks, Cranes, ABC, CBS, the New York Enterprise Report, The Star Ledger, Environmental Leader, CNN, Houston Magazine, Spa Magazine, Women's Wear Daily, and many other media outlets. Jane is the co-creator of the Sustainable Design Entrepreneurship Certificate program at the Fashion Institute in New York City, where she is also an adjunct professor. She has completed the Dublin, Ireland Marathon. I love it because I went to Dublin. I went to Ireland with my husband. Love Ireland. Oh, I want to go back. And Jane is working on perfecting gluten-free baking in her spare time. Oh my gosh, we have more in common than we knew. Today, we talked about understanding what PR is and how it can benefit you. The best way to get started getting publicity, why you want it, tips for getting free press for your business, top resources, mostly free, that you can use to get free press, how to use social media to get press, how to leverage the publicity you get for greater return on your investment. So leveraging the media after you get it is probably one of the biggest things, and why publicity is the best form of marketing, and so much more. This was such a great interview with Jane. And if you've been thinking that you need publicity for what you're doing for your business or for your cause or your book or whatever it is that you do, podcasting, speaking, baking, Jane is all about it today. And she also offers a free online visibility assessment at the end. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode with Jane. I'm super excited to welcome Jane Tabachnick to the show today.
Hi, Linda. I'm so excited to be here.
We were talking, it's always the show before the show, you guys. We were talking before this, and of course I put Jane on the spot. I asked her, tell me something about yourself that hardly anybody knows. So tell me. Tell me again, Jane.
That I don't like caviar or capers.
How did you discover this?
One taste was all it took.
So you never tried them again?
Oh, no.
I've had capers. They are kind of like tart, I guess. I started to say sour, but very salty is the word. Oh my gosh. And so let me just add to that, because I believe in improv, which is yes and. Oh my gosh, I really do not like beets. I can't, because of course, everything growing up was not served to me in the manner, like they were pickled. And I just, oh gosh. But I could eat it in my salad. First time in New York, my daughter, she's a photographer there, and she took me to this little place. I was trying to remember what it was called. Oh, maybe it was called The Beet. It was something like that. Like, duh. But the beets that they chopped up in the salad were fresh, and I was like, I actually liked them and thought, this is delicious. I can't believe I'm eating beets. And I've also, my mother has made beet juice fresh, and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. But growing up, many things. My mom served me asparagus in a can. Have you ever had that?
Yes. Oh God.
And I just say that is probably the grossest thing I've ever eaten. And then spinach in a can. And so I thought I did not like all of these things. In fact, the health nut was shoveling stuff in the garbage underneath things so my mom would not know I didn't eat the vegetables.
I guess you didn't have a dog to feed them to.
No dogs. No, we have a cleanup crew here. But no, I thought about that the other day. I was like, man, if I'd have just had a cleanup crew, I could have easily disposed of things like that. But that's what I would like to say to everybody out there. If you have something you don't like, maybe it's just all in the way it was prepared, and you could wrap your mind around fixing something in a new way. And Jane today, she's all about PR. So is all PR good, Jane, or not?
Well, most PR is good. There can be not such good PR. And most of us aren't equipped to deal with it. If you're a Fortune 500 company, you've got a team of lawyers and spin doctors and communication people to help you get out of it. For the rest of us, it can be really challenging. But for the most part, press is great. And going back to the vegetables, if there's something that, if there's a product or a service that you have, you can present it in a different way. So don't pickle it, find the sweet spot about it and share the story that way, not inauthentically or not lying about it, but just find a different way to present it. And that's really what PR does. It's about communicating effectively and in an engaging way.
I love that, because I think sometimes we feel we may have pigeonholed, like we were trying to niche something down, but we may feel like we pigeonholed ourselves. But how can we then realize that we could pivot and make our brand even better?
I think it's focusing on the people, because we all connect with people, not with products or services. Yes, you have that product you love and that you wouldn't switch brands for, you know, the Hellmann's or nothing people kind of thing. But I think we all connect with stories, and when it involves people or animals or babies, it's very compelling and endearing. So when you focus on the story as well as the people, you really are able to make connections, and that's what makes a difference. And that's what sticks with people. You know, when I was a kid, I was a decent student, but I would not remember the facts. So if the history teacher told us about the war and we got quizzed on what year it happened, forget it. I was not going to get that. I wasn't going to remember. But if they told us an anecdote about the king and he had 3 wives or something like that, I remembered that, because those are stories that involve people, not facts and figures, which aren't really sexy or things that we remember so easily.
I love that you said that, because I think that your story is what draws people to you. It's your why, it's what the product is about. Why should I care? Like if I'm talking to somebody, an audience, and I don't even know, well, who my avatar is, so to speak, who that customer is, if I don't even know who they are, how can I gear my message so that I'm actually speaking to them? And how can I even grow my product?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's a really important thing that some businesses miss, is really understanding who your avatar is, but also what do they care about? You know, what's important to them and what's going to get their attention. So if you can speak to that, you'll certainly get their attention and communicate with them and be relatable to them.
I have to laugh because my husband, my gym, it's a women's fitness boutique, and we just expanded, and it's 3,800 square feet. And it's my husband said that I should say there'll be no sweaty grunting cavemen here. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't know. What if women wish there were some sweaty grunting cavemen there? And I was just like laughing, but I got what he was saying. But I was like, I don't know if that's the appropriate way to put that message out there, but there probably is an appropriate way to let women know it's a place where it's just girl power and we're all there supporting one another. And today we were talking stories at the gym where the ladies have been hit on, or, you know, they called it mansplaining. And one lady said, not to bash men because men are great. She said, there'll be no mansplaining here. I was laughing so hard because it's that thing where women are lifting weights in the weight room, which in the past, in the day, was mostly taken over by men. And men will come up to women and think they need to mansplain how she could do the exercise better. And so that was like, I was like, how do I market that?
Yeah, so I think what your husband was talking about was sometimes using a problem as a marketing hook. And there's a whole school of philosophy that says if you speak to the problem, that you'll get people's attention. And it can work, but it can be better oftentimes and more positive to speak to the positive attributes and some of the things that women might enjoy about coming to your gym, like the sisterhood, the
That's
the
kind of what I was thinking.
energy. Yeah, that kind of, girl power kind of thing.
Right. And so every time he said that to me, I was thinking, I don't know, that seems like a negative. So I'm glad you brought that out. But then today they were letting me know that that was something they enjoyed about the gym. The more they come, how much they love just, well, one lady said, I don't feel like I have to put my makeup on and dress up. She feels like she can let her hair down when she comes to the gym.
Yeah, that's such an important thing, feeling safe, feeling relaxed, feeling like you can be yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ooh. So I got to figure out how to put what that is into words. And I think many of us out there that are putting our businesses online and in the public more than ever before, we're trying to find a way that we can stand apart and set ourselves apart. How can we set ourselves apart from every other business or every other gym on the corner?
I think part of it, Linda, is being yourself. I mean, you are you, right? And while there may be a bunch of other gyms, they don't have you behind them. So I think being your authentic self and letting your personality show is really important. And I think the other thing is just to share stories, and some of the best ways to do that. And of course, you'd want to get permission, but share some of your customer stories. Ann Handley, who's a content marketing expert, says, make the customer the hero of your story. And this works for a bunch of reasons. It's not about you. So you're not saying, hey, we're great. We're saying, look at the people we work with and how they've been able to transform, and we're associated with them. And we had a role in this. You're kind of behind the scenes in this success, but you're helping to share a success story that your potential customers or existing customers can see themselves in. And that's really important. It's relatable. And they say, oh, she was me before, and now that could be me after the transformation, right? So that's really powerful. And the other thing about it, which can be really cool, is if your customer is at all on social media, if you share a story like that, their whole network is going to see it. And so you'll be promoting it, they'll be promoting it. So it's like a double, sort of double whammy in a good way.
You know, it's funny that you say that, but I literally was thinking, well, on one end, I have a new office because we just renovated. And I was thinking today, I'd like to put all the befores and afters of all of my clients, lots of them, because I have a lot of wall space in my office on the wall. Because I think when somebody comes in for a consultation, then that's right there. The product, really, it's
Absolutely.
the product. And I know I've been doing fitness for 30 years. So I might not be relatable to somebody that, is just starting or has not really ever done anything in the realm of fitness, but my clients, their life
Yes,
and watching their growth, that is like, oh, that could be me.
absolutely.
Wow, I love that. I love that. So we gotta think outside of the box. Now, does the average entrepreneur or small business need a PR firm, or do you think they can be their own PR firm successfully themselves?
Yeah, so obviously it's always great to have a professional to help guide you and to do work so you can focus on your business, but that's not always the case. It's not always within the budget, and sometimes it may be more than a company needs at a particular time. So there are actually three ways that you can do PR. One of them is to hire a PR firm. That's the most expensive. They usually require a retainer for a few months. So for a few months minimum. So that's expensive. You can do it all yourself. And then there's a third way, which I call the hybrid method, which is where you do some of it yourself and you outsource some of it. So say you don't think of yourself as a good person to come up with story ideas or hooks or writing. You could outsource just that part, and you could then do the rest of it. You could do the pitching yourself, taking those stories someone has helped you to come up with. So there are a couple of ways that you could do that. So you have to think of your time and what you're doing. And I also encourage people to get a little education, because PR is not advertising, it's not marketing, it's kind of unique. And so just do a little studying. There's a lot of information online. There are courses on Udemy, or you can work with someone like me to learn more about it so that you're educated about how it works, and you can get the best return on your time and investment by doing that. Because the thing that I think people don't realize is that if you get press once, that's fantastic. But we see so much information and things move so quickly now that it's gone in a nanosecond. Your feed changes in minutes on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. So you want to republish that press, to re-promote it on a regular basis and maximize the press, the mentions that you've gotten.
Where could we find someone like that helps us? We're getting, like, on a podcast, I'm getting tons of amazing guests, and they have so much to offer, so much value. You have all these little clips. How can we make the most out of every time somebody that's BFFs with Oprah shouts you out? How can we make the most out of that? And how could we find somebody that we could just say, here, this is what I need, and where would we find someone like that?
Yeah, so if you're looking for someone to actually handle that, you mean like on a day-to-day basis, you
Yeah,
might look.
it's like, I think a lot of businesses, because social media, well, I mean, I'm 58, so I didn't grow up with social media, right? And I think a lot of people that own businesses they may be at an age where they didn't grow up with social media. So in this age of social media where they need to get themselves out there, we're doing it, but we're really unsure of how to go about it. So we don't know, like, what we don't know. We don't know, what kind of person do I get to help me, and how is it not going to cost a fortune?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I think that you have to know what you're looking for. And there are people who are trained to do social media. There are virtual assistants who are trained, who have some knowledge of PR. And there are some PR consultants who will do some of that work. So you have to really evaluate. And the thing is that some people say that they do that, but they're not necessarily experts at that, which is where learning a bit about it comes in handy. Then you can ask some of the right questions and really evaluate it. And I think also being smart about it yourself, figuring out where, this is going back to the avatar. If you know who your customer is and you know where they spend time, you'll know which channels are more important to be spending time on and promoting or re-promoting your content and press on. If your customers really aren't on Facebook, then it's a waste of your time unless you want to be there. From a business point of view, that's not going to help your business move and grow. And I had this with a client not that long ago. Everyone was telling her advertise on Facebook. And I kept saying your clients aren't on Facebook. And it turned out to be true. They were on LinkedIn. And
Okay.
so just knowing that is really important.
Knowing where your clients are.
Right. And also, being smart, like leveraging your time, like podcasts are such a good example, because if a podcast is already speaking to your ideal audience, that's a great place for you to be a guest. And that works for two reasons. You get to share your expertise and they get to get a taste of you, but also it's kind of like a warm endorsement. Being a guest on a podcast, just like being featured in the media, is almost like you're being endorsed by the media or the podcast host. They could have chosen 10 experts who seemingly do what you do. They're not you, so they don't do exactly what you do, but they have maybe the same title. And so they could have chosen those people, but they chose you. And you're the one being featured and getting to share your expertise. So that looks like an endorsement. And that's really important, that sort of third-party credibility and sort of that warm referral.
You're making me laugh now.
Why?
Because you should truly, if you want to be on someone's podcast, you need to check it out and see, is it a good fit for you? Like I had someone pitching me about, I don't know how to put it, mortuary funerals, toxic mold. Not that we don't talk about toxic mold once in a while about our health, but I really didn't know if I wanted to do a whole episode on it, And so like paying attention again to your audience, and if that was the type of podcast I was having, it would make sense then. And so like you said, I do vet who's coming on my show. And I just had this discussion. So I echo what you said. I just had this discussion with my assistant about the people that I have on. They represent my brand, and I need to vet them, and have a process, because you don't want to be in the middle of your podcast and realize it's not a good fit.
That's really true. And, I'm glad you brought that up. So what you're describing is what has been referred to as spray and play or something, or throw enough mud at the wall, when people just pitch randomly and they haven't done their homework. And that's really not a good way to pitch, whether you're looking to be a guest on a podcast or to be featured in the media. When you just send out pitches to like just a list, however you find it, or pull it together without really checking if it's a fit, you're going to piss people off. They may blacklist you. They may make unpleasant comments on social media if they get pissed off enough, but it's just not a good way to go. It's so much better to be selective, do your homework, better to make like 5 great pitches than 500 that, are just not related, not relevant.
Yes. Oh, and then I had the mediums, and it was a very long list. And so I said, because I'm getting pitched daily, we need a process so that we can make sure what we're giving to our audience is worth their time and they're going to get some value from it. So, and also worth the hour of spending with that person. And I really enjoy a lot of what you have to offer. Why isn't this so important for us? Like, why is it important for us to build credibility and be an authority out there?
Yeah, thanks. Such a good question. So it's really important because the truth is no one really cares what you say about you. Like your marketing copy can say anything, right? And you've seen this. but people will Google you. They'll check out what comes up for your, for your search. They'll check out the guests that you have on your podcast to see, are they credible? Are they people that I want to hear from? So it's all about building a brand. Does the Google search match who you say you are? About 2 years ago, I was looking to hire a mindset coach. I thought I needed to do a little work on some mindset things, and I liked her, but I thought, I really hadn't heard about her before I saw her post on social media a few weeks back. So I Googled her, and I kept seeing HR consultant or some job she had in HR. Now, maybe the two are related, and maybe she was just getting some training or had always been a mindset coach, but it didn't align.
Oh my
There was
gosh,
right? There was a
oh yeah, I just
disconnect.
had that.
And so the spidey sense goes up, right? And you just think, is this a lie? Is it posturing? So you start to question, and rightly so. So you don't want that to happen to you. You want to really make sure everything aligns with not just who you say you are, but who other people say you are. Are people talking about you on social media? What are they saying? And which podcasts are you on? It all adds up to a picture. One little thing that doesn't add up is going to raise that red flag and is going to take away from you doing business. It's going to turn off prospects.
And that's so true. And I love that, what you said about being like authentically like lining up in all ways, because when I looked at this individual, I give everybody a fair shake. So I was looking at all the information and I was like, okay, this is what you say you do, but this doesn't line up with what you say you do.
Right.
And I'm having a disconnect here because it's so far apart. So like just being in alignment is huge. And I really had an epiphany the other day, and I want to see what you think about it. This gal that's been on my podcast, she is a Christian podcaster, and she has a business teaching others how to podcast, and she comes right out, says who she is. And I thought about that. I thought, if you really just be who you are, you don't have to apologize for it later. And it's like, if you come to my studio and you want yoga, but I'm doing like a Navy SEAL workout, you might be upset with me because I advertised I was doing yoga, but I showed up as a Navy SEAL. People probably are like, yes, you do that all the time. But, but what I'm saying is basically, if you show up and aligned as who you are, you don't have to apologize for it later.
Exactly. And look, we all pivot, and I think that's a good thing. So I'm not saying don't pivot, don't transform. Absolutely do that, but make sure you're leaving a breadcrumb trail. Make sure you're speaking about it in your social media, add it to your website, maybe even just coming soon, so that if someone is Googling you, they'll see it. They'll say, oh, okay, it hasn't launched yet, but I see it's in development. So that at least gives someone some comfort instead of, well, I don't see it mentioned anywhere. So, what's up with that?
It's kind of like if I say I'm a classical musical artist and you come to my concert and I play screeching heavy metal, that's not in alignment with what I said I do. And it could really piss people off. So I just think being in alignment is key.
Yes. And we've seen musicians. I have been to a concert like that. I came to hear you play the old songs. You're doing something new and we're not loving it. But people want to transform. So I get it. I mean, a mix could have been good in that case. Play some of the old, maybe you're tired of playing them, but play some of them for us and then some of the new.
We might have to wean people into that. I think,
right.
Yes, we're not cement, we can grow and evolve, but I do love what you said. I really think that's a nugget today about leaving a breadcrumb or two, a trail of them, so people can make the transition if you're transitioning.
Yeah, and I just also want to say, it's not just your prospects who are going to Google you. The media will Google you before they're going to put you in front of their audience. If you think of the media, it's not that different than a business owner. The media values their audience. They value the time that the entire team or the publication has spent building the brand. So they want to make sure that who they're putting in front of their audience on brand is really a fit and is who they say they are. So they're going to Google you and make sure you are who you say you are and that you're ready for the press. If they find you don't have a website or nothing shows up for social media profiles, then that in this day and age, that's a little strange. Even as a new company, that's one of the first things we do. We put up a page. It could even just be coming soon, but there's some evidence that we exist, right? So they will search for that just to check out and vet you. So you want to make sure that you've done your job for the media as well.
Oh, I agree with that so much. About when I first started, you don't know what you don't know, but then as you get rolling and your show grows and grows and you start building a team of people, you take your time. You're like, this is my time. This is very, I'm taking my time seriously and I value my time. So I want to give value. So I have to make sure that when I am having somebody on, that they're aligned, that they're going to provide value to the listeners out there. And I just can't say that enough, because I do check out, I do make sure I want to listen to a show that you've been on. Hang on a second. I actually turned hang on a second. I'm going to push stop for a second here so we can edit this. Okay. So these are all really great tips that you're giving us. And I feel like, in essence, you're teaching us how to build a brand. How can we not just build any brand, but a celebrity brand, one that is recognized and it's got our stamp on it?
Yeah. So you can build a celebrity brand, and that doesn't have to mean Hollywood celebrity. You can be a local celebrity, or you can be a celebrity in your industry. So I just want to clarify that, because not everyone wants to be Kardashian famous, right? So
we just want to be known. And that to me is kind of like,
yeah, exactly. We want to be known. So I think it's sharing the stories that we spoke about, knowing your audience. And then it's also connecting with other people, being social in a sense. So I call it hugging an influencer. So there are people who are influencers, and I'm not just talking about Instagram influencers. They could be people who you see as leaders in your industry. They could be someone you respect, like Oprah, anybody like that who you think of as a thought leader and a leader. And the best thing you can do is follow them on social media, comment on things that they post, share things they post, and really just start to network with them online. No agenda needed. And the great thing about this is when you do this, you start to build a relationship with it. Even with people who you think of as too famous to notice you, they will notice you and they'll be thrilled that you're commenting, sharing, liking, and magical things happen. My client, Christine, started doing this. She was so excited. She never thought of doing this. And she started doing this with someone who she just thought of as someone who was putting out good content. And she said, oh my God, I've been having this Twitter conversation with this guy who she named. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, because I know who he is. He's a pretty big thought leader in a certain niche. And notice I'm not naming names here. And the next thing she pinged me and said, guess what? He just invited me to be on his podcast. I'm like, that is so amazing. That's one of the top, like 50 top podcasts out there. She said, it is. And this just happened because she was authentically being herself, interacting with someone who she valued and letting him know she valued the content that he put out. And, it's great for everyone, even someone you think of as a celebrity, because you put out that content, whether it's a blog post, a social media post, your newsletter, and you hear crickets and you start to think, is anyone listening? Does my content stink? The whole I could run through 50 different thoughts that I think we all have when we put out content. So the thing is, if you comment, if you're the one who comments, shares, likes, you're standing out, because most of us stay in our head. I'll hit reply to a newsletter that I get and say, congratulations, that was a great story. I'm really happy for
I
you.
do that too.
And the response back is
Yeah.
often shock. Like, I can't believe you sent me that note. I'm like, why? We're both humans. Like, this is a conversation, or it could be. So just taking that step can make amazing things happen. And you'll feel good about it. It feels good to share and support someone. And, I say be authentic, because don't just like someone because you want to get in someone's good graces. Authentically share, comment, and like things that you do feel that you like and are aligned with you.
I love that. And I have a little bit of a story. When I was, now this show is no longer on television, but if anybody remembers it, it was in 2009, the Mike and Juliet show on Fox. And I was going with Ann Louise Gittleman, who's written over 30
I know
books.
Ann Louise, of course.
On nutrition. So I collaborated on Fat Flush for Life, and we were going to be on. And I remember I was just in awe. Like, they put me up in the Mila on Times Square, and I don't think I'd been to New York until then. So I got the traditional cab ride. It was a little scary. And the guy almost had an accident. And so, like, it was very flavorful. And her brother was her PR agent, and we were all sitting at breakfast. They picked me up in a limo. I was like, oh my goodness. And so we're eating breakfast, and I don't know if I was a little butterflies in my stomach, let's say. And he just said, he said, they're just people. When you go to the show, they put their pants on the same way as you do, and just like, that just stuck with me to remember that they're, we elevate, but celebrities, I think, and they're just people too. And if you keep that in mind, then we're all on the same level, really. We're all people, we're all human. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love that story. And I have that book and her other one on my shelf. So we've been connected for longer than we knew.
That's super cool. She's amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
So amazing. So amazing in all ways.
Yes.
So that was a kind of a cool thing. And when I went to the studio, they coached the audience to applaud for you.
Yes.
And clap and cheer. So I go out, and that's going on, and I am just cracking up, because it just brings that smile to your face. You have this cheering section. And it gave me this idea. I thought, when I have a women's conference, because I'm planning one, we do this walk in heels because I think it builds confidence. And I've done a lot of competing in fitness, and one of my girls is a model, and I just thought, I think it would be cool to have this fire walk, kind of like Tony Robbins has this fire walk, but our fire walk is to build women's confidence. And they're going to put those heels on. We're going to play I'm Sexy and I Know It, and they're going to be strutting down the line, and we're going to be cheering for them. Go girl,
I love that.
So I was just thinking, like, isn't that so that's my own flavor that I'm bringing to my brand. And I think it's going to be life-changing when we have our fire walk.
Absolutely. And that's a good story. So those photos can not just go on your office wall, but those could be great for sharing with the media.
I love it. Because I think, like, that's something that people all need to work on at times, is their self-confidence.
Absolutely. And, it's an important thing, it's something that comes up in my work a lot as well, because when you're looking to put yourself out there, you start to think, am I an imposter? Is anyone going to find out maybe I'm not the best at this, or all sorts of thoughts go through your head. And so sometimes people will shy away. We've even had instances where we get people amazing media opportunities that they say they want, and then all of a sudden they're too busy, or
They get scared.
They don't just come out and say, I'm terrified, can you help me with this? But they'll hide, or just, not answer the phone kind of thing. And I get that it's scary. So now what we do is very proactively to let them know upfront, this is probably going to happen at some point, but let's work on it together, because you deserve to be in the media, and being scared happens to everyone, even celebrities. If you read any stories about like Barbara Streisand, it has like total stage fright, and so does Adele. I mean, Adele would tell stories about how she would throw up before she went on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when people at the top of their game, internationally famous, multi-millionaires, they still have anxiety, fear of being in front of people, that kind of thing. So it's very normal. And it also is something that comes and goes. Sometimes you have more confidence than others, or one particular person or media outlet intimidates you more. And all of that can really be worked on. Just like there are physical trainers in sports, there are specialist trainers, like baseball players have pitching coaches, or they'll have, running coaches. And we do the same thing in the media. There can be on-camera coaches, there can be voice coaches, there can be presence coaches, like how you stand or sit when you're, doing a Zoom interview, so that you may, or how you get your lighting, your makeup, all of that can be worked on, and it can help you build your confidence. You're probably going to say the same thing, you're still the same person, but if it makes you more confident and helps you connect with more people, that's what really matters. And that can be where some of the magic happens.
And I love that when I was doing Beyond TV with Jen Gottlieb, she had us do a walkout list that you play before your interviews. And so I made Linda's walkout list on Spotify, if anybody needs a walkout list.
Yes.
But I think it truly helped. So I played it before I was on Bold TV, because you do get those butterflies, and you're not sure the first time you do something how it's all going to go, how it's all going to flow. Things can go wrong, but the show goes on. And the first time when I was on Bold, my iPad literally wouldn't, because I had it set on the tripod. We did the camera and the lighting check, and they were going to be back with me in like an hour. And I don't know what happened, but my iPad would not charge. It died. It would not. I thought it was charging the whole time. It wouldn't charge, nothing for an hour. And it was one of these UVC cords, not the, the other traditional one. So I had none. I had nowhere to get them, because it was a brand new iPad. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I had bought these little tripods. I got my iPhone. And so my very first video on Bold, I felt like I was Lucille Ball at the Chocolate Factory because I had it perfect. But now it was like, I had so many things we were making. It was like an 8-minute clip. And I was trying to show them, make it, roll it out, cut it, and it was going so fast that I felt like that. And so then I remember saying to myself, well, that was the first one. The next one will be better. And then it was great without a hitch. But I got way more views on the first one.
Yeah, sometimes we come across as more authentic if we make a blooper,
Right.
Because someone who's perfect is not relatable. Because who really is perfect? Maybe they're airbrushed, maybe they've edited the segment. No one is perfect. And I love watching those bloopers, because I think it reminds us, sometimes at the end of a movie, they'll have those. And it's really great for all of us to watch them, to see how even professional actors, Hollywood Oscar-winning actors will flub their lines or get the giggles. Like I've actually seen Anderson Cooper get the giggles uncontrollably. And it's just priceless, because he's on camera, it's live, and it's a human reaction, and it just makes him more relatable.
And I love that. I really do, because I think you're right about it isn't the perfect parts of you that attract people. It's the relatable parts of you.
Yes.
So
So be,
good.
yeah, so be willing to share something of yourself. So this is something I know I struggle with. So I'm a pretty private person, and I have a daughter who's even more private. So I'm not allowed to share anything about her on social media. And that can be hard. Sometimes I'm a proud mom, or I want to tell a story of something we've done, but I can't do that. Sometimes I can get permission, but not often.
Right.
But I struggle with how much I share. I don't want to come across as someone who's just cold and I'm all work, no play, but I want to be authentic, and I am, but it's always a balancing act of what do I want to share? What am I not comfortable sharing? And what am I not allowed to share?
Right. It is a little bit of a balancing act.
Right.
I think
And
for everybody it is.
yeah, I think so. But I think I've had this conversation with some of my clients. It's like, do I have to share everything? No, you absolutely don't. And sometimes people get nervous when they're speaking to the media that they're going to ask a question that they don't want to answer. So the best way to do that is really to just prepare in advance. If there's something you don't want to talk about, come up with a simple way to shift the conversation or to give a non-answer and move on and practice it. I mean, that's the next thing. It's okay to practice by yourself, as silly as it might feel. You can set up Zoom and practice, or have a friend practice with you, and just do it a few times so it feels a little bit more natural. And don't worry about it. That's their job, to try and get in there for certain types of interviews. Most interviews are really friendly, and they're not going to try and get in there with something very personal or something you might not want to speak about. But occasionally something comes up. Maybe something happens in your business that was somewhat public that they might want to ask about. So those are the kind of things that can be good to practice in advance, so you still feel like yourself and you're being authentic, but you're shifting the conversation like you might with a friend who's kind of prying where you don't want them to pry. And that's okay.
I think podcasts are great practice for being interviewed, like on the news or on a show, because like I had a gal that wrote about Ryan Widmer, which was the bathtub drowning that happened around where the Mason, Ohio area where my business is. And she wrote a book about it, and she was a journalist for a very long time. So it was really interesting, and I thought, I mean, we're friends. I was like, I need to interview her. The interview like went viral, and then CNN had her on because of, like, we did it live, and she was on CNN like within 2 hours after that.
Wow.
And so she told me, she's like, Linda, if I wouldn't have done that podcast with you, first of all, I probably wouldn't have been on. Second of all, I wouldn't have known what to do. We worked through it. I helped her set up her Zoom, the whole bit. And so I think, like, if you can take practice and baby steps before the actual leap, it's very key. Does your media firm help with that?
It's not something that we do. We have trainers who we refer our clients to, because that's really a specialty kind of thing. But, we'll give them tips. We'll give our clients tips on what to do. But if they really want training, we refer them out. Like, I actually hired a voice coach a few years ago. I started what's called an Alexa flash briefing. It's kind of like a micro podcast. And when I listened to the recordings, it wasn't that I was being a perfectionist, but I heard that I was pausing because I was taking a breath, like I wasn't breathing properly. And so I realized that it would sound better. It would just flow more smoothly. If my breathing was better, it would make my speech better. So I hired a theatrical vocal coach to help me with that. And I'm sure I could do some more work, but it definitely made a difference. So sometimes you need to go to a specialist for certain types of training.
Well, I love that, because from long ago, when I did Miss Fitness USA pageants, we would have to do a speech in evening gown, and I had a choreographer coach the whole bit, and he would be like, oh, you're clicking, like your how you would be doing with your voice or
Yes.
with your lips, so many things. And he would really, bring those out. And I think also when I went to Toastmasters, they would tell the person how many times they heard something, if it was excessive, not to make your person that's trying to learn nervous, but I think it's really important when you do a podcast that you listen back to yourself so you can see, what are you actually delivering? Is there something that you say too much every time? And how can we break those habits?
That's such good advice. And Toastmasters is such a good recommendation. It's a friendly, safe environment to do some public speaking and get some feedback in a supportive way. No one does it in a critical, nasty kind of way. They're very supportive and encouraging, and you can actually make good friends there as well if you find the right group. It's really a great thing to do. But also such a good suggestion to listen back to your interviews, because sometimes we just don't realize while we're speaking, we don't hear a sound, a speech pattern, or we don't see funny faces we make when we're on camera. And I'm not saying to get all focused and negative and obsessed about certain things you do, but
right. You want to be organic still.
Organic, and just try and be a little bit objective about how you're appearing, and see if there's anything small that you could tweak to make yourself better on camera, and not to have those little things distract from the way that you're presenting.
I think we could all improve, and that's just all you ever want, is just to keep working on your craft, but not get caught up in perfectionism. But one of the biggest things I found was, if you have to edit your own podcast a couple times, you will stop saying things that you need to stop saying. Because you might have to edit it out 50 times.
That's so true.
So what is the biggest mistake that you see people make when they get publicity?
Yeah, so the biggest mistake people make is not re-promoting the press they get. So what happens, I think, did we speak about that? Was this in the pre-show, or did we talk about this earlier in the show? But it bears repeating because it really is important. So if you think about it like this, my client was featured in the New York Times a few weeks ago. Amazing, right? Everyone, I think it's safe to say, has heard of the New York Times. So this is a major accomplishment, but I didn't read the Times that day. Maybe you didn't. So for us, that didn't happen, right? We're bombarded by so much information all the time, and information goes by so quickly. A post and a Facebook feed is gone 5-10 minutes later, unless it gets republished. So what you want to do when you get press is re-promote it. You can add it to you could post it on social media right after it happens. So excited, so honored to be featured in the media. Love your feedback on this story, whatever you want to say. But you can also put it into a social media scheduler and republish it in a few weeks, let's say 6 weeks out, another 6 weeks out. But you can put it in your newsletter. You can send it out as a special announcement to your audience, friends and family, because everyone is going to be excited about it and they're going to want to know about it. So it's really important that you share it.
Yeah.
And share it again.
How can we do, I think sometimes we worry, we don't want it to be like, look at me, look at me. How do we share it so it's not cheesy?
Such a good question. And, this can vary a little bit from person to person. So you have to figure out what's comfortable for you, but you can just share that you're excited that this happened. And that's one way. You can say you're honored that this happened. And depending on what's in the story, you might highlight some things that, happened. Like, we just launched a new service and we're excited that we'd love you to know about it. And we're excited because it just got featured in such and such publication. If it features your client, like we spoke about your client being the hero of the story, then you can share how you are excited your client got mentioned in this story, which also mentions you. So that can help as well. But, you have to think about also try not to worry about bragging, because I think women worry about that a lot more than men. And I know I
definitely
was taught, I grew up hearing it's not polite to brag. But I think people want to share in your success, like what I was talking about before with Hug an Influencer. If you don't share the exciting things going on in your world and let people help celebrate, then you're depriving them of an opportunity to interact with you and celebrate with you. Yes, there'll be people who might be jealous or, may have some snide comment, and there'll always be those people, but don't let that stop you, because I think people generally want to celebrate, and it's an achievement, and you definitely want to let people know about it because you probably worked to get it. Most press doesn't happen magically. The press doesn't just find you. For the most part, they don't find you and write about you. Usually, if someone is speaking on a stage, if they're written about in the media, if they're on a podcast, it's because they took the time to tell their story and ask the outlet if they wanted to share the story or have them on as a guest. So you've worked to get that media. Now you want to maximize that and celebrate it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love the idea of others celebrating with you, and also your brand deserves to have a voice. How can we go about getting free publicity?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways to do that. So by hugging an influencer, by building that network, once people know you, like my client Christine, she got onto one of the top podcasts just by authentically interacting with this influencer. You can also use a service like HARO, which stands for Help a Reporter Out. And what that is basically what I call a media matchmaking service. It is a free service that will send you stories the media are already working on, but they need an expert source like you. They may need tips on how women over 40 should work out without getting injured, or they may need a case study or quotes or something like that. And the story is about to run. They just need that input from an expert. So it's a great way to get press. Plus, you don't have to come up with the story idea. The story idea is already decided and the outlet is already decided. You just need to email back your input and you'll get publicity. So that's one great way, two great ways to get free publicity. Hug the influencer and use a service like HARO, Help a Reporter Out. And of course, being a guest on podcasts is another great free way. Of course, if you're a guest on podcast, you definitely want to re-promote and share the episode. That's really important. If you're a guest, you want to make sure that you help
100%.
Right?
Because I'm like, why would I spend an hour doing that? And then of course, more than an hour, because you have your person that edits and that does your content, your show notes, you have your graphics that, and then you promote it on all of your social media channels. So if you're invested in this person, why wouldn't they be invested in themselves?
Yes.
So that is big. I love that you said that. And one thing I have to say I'm guilty of, I got all this publicity, like I did, I've done some television, I've done like recently was Insider, Authority Magazine, of course, I mentioned Bold TV. But like you said, it's there today, gone tomorrow. And what are the 3 things that we should do? Because I see that this could be an important question once we have publicity, because I'm like, I had this publicity, but I'm guilty of doing nothing with it. What should we do with it?
Yeah. So the thing that I love to do is put a media room on your website, and that can be just a page. It doesn't have to be any special format, but list the press that you've gotten in with the most recent up top in chronological descending order. So the oldest press should be the lowest. So that's one thing. Then upgrade all your bios to mention some press you've gotten. You've got bios on your website, LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere you've got a bio, put in, featured in, and name 1 or 2 outlets, right? You can also put a banner across your website as seen in, and that lends so much credibility because, again, you can say anything about you, but when someone sees that you've been in all these publications, it's really that third-party credibility, that authority positioning, you, not your competition,
you're right.
Right? And the other thing about it, if you use the logos, this is really important. It's a quick visual association that people make because they're recognizable brands. right? So if it was, bold, whatever their logo is, people read images much faster than they read text. So they'll recognize the Nike logo, in a nanosecond. It's faster than you can even say it, right? So when you've got all those logos together, it's this big, like lightning bolt to their brain that says, wow, all these brands that Linda's associated with, I'm impressed. And they don't even have to read your marketing copy anymore. You've already set the tone and elevated yourself to an authority position, and they already have an impression of you, and it's a positive impression. And that's powerful. They're pre-sold on you.
Oh gosh, you were so right about that. And I have to say, I had a customer recently I did all of this work during the pandemic. Now it's paying off. I was advertising on Google, trying to get my business up in the search engine. So that's how she found me. And when she was on reading customers' testimonials and other things on my website, she was pre-sold before she even came in, because she could see that I was, I had the solution for her problem, what she was really looking for. And so I see like how that could be. You're setting yourself up to win. Why is PR the best form of content that we can have?
Yeah, so it is the best form because, as I've mentioned, with marketing, it's what you say about you. So there is a model called PESO, paid, earned, owned, and shared media. And the owned media is anything that you have ownership of, your website, a Facebook page. Even though it's on Facebook, you basically control the content on it. So in a sense, you could say anything there. It's kind of like advertising. You can put anything in an ad as long as it doesn't trigger some Federal Trade Commission regulations in the US. You can say anything, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, right? And people are skeptical of those messages because people do say anything without anything to back it up. But as I've said, when you're in the media, they've chosen you, they've vetted you, they've chosen you, you've earned the right to be in front of their audience. And that's what makes it the most valuable of all the media out there. And then behind that is shared. So when someone shares a blog post or a mention of you, that's like an endorsement as well, because they wouldn't share something if they didn't think it was valuable. They didn't want to say to their friends, hey, look at this, you've got to see this kind of thing. So the earned media, the shared media are the most valuable. You still need the owned, you still need to have the website, you still need the Facebook page, but people aren't going to believe your content. It's that third-party credibility. Like if you think of it like this, if you were going out you decide Saturday night you want to go out to dinner, and you're looking at a few different restaurants, but you can't decide, what do? You ask your friends and family for recommendations. You then look at Yelp or reviews on maybe TripAdvisor, right? Online reviews, even if you don't know the people promoting the reviews. And then after that, you might look at the website or an ad. And that's the order. This is actually a Nielsen Trust and Advertising Survey. Recommendations from friends and family, the media, and then advertising marketing messages in that order. So the media is up there with friends and family, and that's powerful.
It is powerful. So you got to use it to your advantage. And then again, back to like what we said at the beginning, showing up as uniquely you.
Yes.
Like, I think many times we may listen to somebody we admire that, they just speak eloquently. Their facts are, it's like they're talking from a textbook. But some people can't relate to that. Maybe they'll relate to you better because you're speaking in terms they understand. I'm just saying, like, yes, there's room for all of us. Like, there's room for the person that's speaking in scientific terms. There's room for the real person that's just talking to people. And so not getting caught up in that and recognizing that just being you is what's going to make you stand out.
That's such a good message, Linda. And I think it's important to know sometimes offending some people, I'm not saying necessarily cursing or being obnoxious, but sometimes the people that don't resonate with you are doing you a favor. Like, you want to attract the people who are your people. right? And the people who don't necessarily resonate, that's really okay because they're not your people. They're probably never going to pay you or hire you, right? So by being yourself and attracting your people, it's just a much better way to be. It feels better and it's authentic. And then people know who you are. What you see is what you get, right?
I think
So
you're not having a clear message if you're not repelling anyone. Like,
that's right.
it's
Yes,
not, you're not really making like a stance.
exactly.
So good today. Oh gosh, this was good. I could talk to you a lot longer. You really are knowledgeable about PR. And I know you have like a free takeaway. Tell everybody about that.
Yes. So I've got a visibility assessment. It's really fun. No need to think you're going to be scored and get nervous about like school type exam, but the visibility assessment was designed just to give you a sense of where you are and what other opportunities there might be for you to get more visibility. So you can find that if you go to my website at simplygoodpress.com. And then it'll also give you some other resources that'll help you get more visibility, because the truth of the matter is you have to be in it. If you're not out there, as we said, pitching, putting yourself out there for those opportunities, they're not just going to happen. So you want to get in the game to get more visibility.
And I think it is kind of like that's, snowball effect, because once you get one, you get the next, and then you're rolling.
That's so true. It can build on itself. Like you mentioned, your guest, the journalist who was on your podcast, and then CNN picked her up. I'm not saying that'll happen to everyone, but that can and does happen.
So great. Well, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this. And where else can people get your brand, if you have a book, or where can they reach you on social media?
Yeah, really the best thing to do is go to Simply Good Press. You can go to, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, but you can find all those links from Simply Good Press instead of trying to spell Tabachnick. So that's probably the easiest thing to do.
Oh my gosh, and I have to say, I did see that you get a lot of authors recognized and you help authors. So maybe we'll have you back on to talk all about that for another show.
That would be great. I'd love that, Linda. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks you. Thank you, everybody, for listening today to this episode. And as always, keep on keeping on. Bye, everybody.